I always thought I had everything figured out. By the time I turned 32, I was a successful sales director at a leading tech firm in Atlanta. I worked almost nonstop for years, 60, sometimes 70 hours a week, just to afford my own 2-bedroom condo downtown. No gifts from daddy, no inheritance, just my salary, my late-night grind, and discipline that refused to bend. I pinched every penny, clearance rack clothes, homemade lunch, no Uber rides ever. While others posted their travel selfies, I was picking out affordable paint samples, patching up drywall in the guest room, and refinishing Craigslist furniture with my own hands. At 28, I made the final mortgage payment, 7 years to pay off a 15-year loan. When I held that title deed in my hands with only my name printed on it, I cried. It wasn't just a condo, it was my fortress, my triumph. That 800-square-foot apartment in the heart of the city didn't just have walls and windows, it had meaning. And by 32, I wasn't just financially solid, I thought I was emotionally ready too. That's when I met Darren. We crossed paths at a corporate networking event, one of those sleek rooftop parties where everyone has a name tag and a business card, but is secretly just there for the free champagne and potential meet-cutes. He wasn't flashy, but he had presence, warm smile, pressed shirt, confident handshake. Darren worked as a sales manager for a partner company. We talked shop for 10 minutes, but what pulled me in was how actually listened, genuinely engaged. It had been a while since someone asked questions beyond, "So what do you do?" After that night, he pursued everything right. White roses because I once casually mentioned I find red ones cliché. Friday night dinners, always on time, never distracted. He'd hold the car door, carry my coat, and walk me to my unit door like we were in a Nicholas Sparks movie. I'll admit, I swooned. Especially after what I'd left behind. Just a year earlier, I ended a 5-year relationship that had drained my self-worth. My ex, let's call him Jake, treated my career like it was a hobby and my salary like it was pocket change. He wanted me to quit, stay home, settle down. Meanwhile, he barely made enough to pay for cable and spent most nights in the garage drinking beer with his friends. When I finally left him, he didn't even argue, just shrugged and said, "Good luck, it's all downhill from 30 anyway." That breakup shook me. For 6 months, I buried myself in therapy, work, and quiet evenings where the only sound was the hum of my dishwasher. Dating again was terrifying, trusting someone again, even scarier. But Darren was different. He said he admired how hard I worked, that I inspired him. He bragged to his friends about his brilliant, beautiful black queen. Those walls I'd built after Jake started to crack, I let Darren in. 8 months later, he proposed. It wasn't a viral TikTok kind of proposal, no flash mobs or rented yachts. Just dinner at the restaurant where we first met. Darren knelt beside the table, nervously fumbling with a ring box. A modest diamond, simple silver band. It wasn't about the carats. I said yes, then I cried, because in that moment I believed. Finally, I'm going to have someone, a real partner, a family. We kept things intimate. Just a small courthouse wedding with close friends and family. I bought a classic off-rack white dress from Bloomingdale's. Darren wore his work suit. Everything felt grounded, sincere. His mother, Eleanor Hawthorne, flew in for the ceremony. She was 60, widowed, and lived in a modest 1-bedroom rental outside the perimeter. Worked part-time as a mall janitor and got about $1,800 a month between Social Security and her cleaning gig. From what Darren told me, she'd sacrificed a lot to raise him. I admired that. She cried crocodile tears at the ceremony. "My son finally found someone who'll take care of him," she sniffled. I remember smiling gently and thinking, of course I'll take care of him. After a cozy honeymoon in Cabo San Lucas, Darren moved into my condo with 2 duffel bags, some clothes, a laptop, and a few personal items. He gave notice on his rented apartment and said, "No point in paying for what we don't use." I agreed, why waste money? It felt like a new chapter. We hung joint photos in the hallway, bought matching bathrobes, picked out curtains together, rearranged my furniture with minor and mostly friendly disagreements. "No, Darren, the couch can't block the windows just because you want to see the TV from that angle." My life, once structured to the minute, now had soft corners. Laughter, romance, shared routines. I thought this is what marriage is supposed to feel like. But every storm starts quietly. 2 weeks before the wedding, we were discussing who'd be responsible for what: utilities, groceries, household chores. Then Darren looked at me across the kitchen table and said, almost casually, "Babe, have you thought about putting the condo in both our names, so I can feel like it's my home too? It just feels weird not having my name on it." I laughed. Not to be rude, just lightly dismissed it. "Darren, it's my premarital property. Legally, it stays mine even after marriage. But come on, you're living here. This is your home too." He smiled and nodded, but his eyes shifted just slightly. A flicker, disappointment, annoyance. It was subtle, barely there, but I noticed. Still, I brushed it off. Everyone gets wedding nerves, I told myself. He probably just wants to feel like more than a guest. But something about it stuck with me. Like the tiniest stone in your shoe, you can walk with it, run even, but eventually it's going to dig too deep to ignore. And I didn't know it yet, but that little comment. That was the first crack in everything. For the first few months after the wedding, everything still felt golden. Darren moved in smoothly. There were no big clashes, no awkward adjustments. We were just two adults figuring out married life, laughing over burnt toast and arguing over Netflix shows. We bought new bedding together. I ordered a throw blanket he'd been eyeing. We took Polaroids and stuck them on the fridge with funny captions. Saturday nights became movie nights on the couch. Sunday mornings, we'd walk through the park, sipping on overpriced lattes and feeding ducks like we were living in a rom-com. Sure, we both worked long hours. I left the house at 8 a.m. sharp and came back at 7 p.m., sometimes later. Being a sales director in tech isn't glamorous behind the scenes, it's draining. But Darren had a little more flexibility in his schedule, so occasionally he'd get home earlier and bring takeout. Chinese, salads, rotisserie chicken, nothing fancy but thoughtful. Neither of us cooked much. We were both tired most nights and didn't pretend otherwise. It worked. It worked for a while. Financially, we tried to split household costs as evenly as we could, but it was always clear my salary was double his. $10,000 a month take-home on my end, $5,000 on his. He didn't seem insecure about it, or so I thought. He still paid half of the groceries and HOA dues. I respected that. Half his salary went straight toward shared expenses, and while I knew it couldn't be easy, he never complained. "We're a team," he always said. I believed him. Then his mother started visiting. At first, it seemed innocent. Eleanor would come by on Saturdays, bringing cookies from a discount bakery and stories about traffic, Social Security, and back-in-my-day wisdom. Darren doted on her. He'd pour her tea, give her foot rubs, fluff her pillows. I tried to be an excellent hostess, putting out snacks, smiling politely, ignoring the little digs she sprinkled in like salt disguised as sugar. "Oh, you work quite late, don't you, dear?" Darren used to be so slim until all these frozen meals, huh? I bit my tongue. It was her generation, I told myself. Let it go. But the visits became more frequent. Once a week turned into every other day, then somehow every day. No calls, no texts, just Eleanor sitting at the kitchen table when I got home, feet up, my tea mug in her hand, eating crackers I'd specifically saved for myself. "Oh, Sierra," she'd say, "you're home late again. Do you ever cook for my Darren? I made him real soup, not some store-bought tray." I'd trudge past her without a word, shove my exhausted body into the shower and try not to scream into a towel. Her voice would follow me down the hallway. Back in my day, a wife didn't treat her husband like a roommate. She made sure he had dinner and a clean house. But I worked every hour God allowed. And every time I walked into my condo, it felt like walking into someone else's expectations. Expectations I never agreed to. Then came the passive-aggressive fridge inspections. Eleanor developed a habit of opening my refrigerator like it was her personal reality show. She'd scan the shelves, then frown extra hard when she found only yogurt or pre-cooked meals. My poor boy, she'd mutter, no nourishment, look how thin he's getting. Meanwhile, Darren just sat there, silently chewing on pizza bought and contributing absolutely nothing to the conversation. And I stayed quiet because I thought it was temporary, that if I played the part of the polite, mature daughter-in-law, she'd eventually back off. But I didn't understand then. Alina was just getting started. The commentaries turned into something else, something colder, calculated. It began with gentle vulnerabilities. Oh, my blood pressure pills ran out, and my next check doesn't come until next week. I couldn't afford my eye drops this month, I'll just suffer a bit. At first, Darren would reach into his wallet without hesitation. Here, Mom, $300, don't wait on medicine. Understandable, it's his mother. But then, $300 became $800. Then $1,500 for a friend's loan she needed to repay. $2,000 for a plumber after a totally unexpected hot water tank replacement. Then a new winter coat, a new microwave, some boots, and a brand new flat-screen TV. All urgent needs. Darren stopped looking me in the eye when he pulled cash from his drawer. 1 month in, he was borrowing from colleagues. A month later, payday loan apps. I noticed the red envelopes in the mail. Then one night while I was working late on a quarterly sales report, Darren came in from the kitchen, scratching the back of his neck. Babe, can I borrow $2,000? I looked up from my screen. Why? It's just this month, Mom needs help with her prescriptions again. I'm wiped out till payday. I stared at him. Darren, you've been giving her half your salary every month. You're going into debt, are you hearing yourself? So, she's my only parent. She also gets Social Security and works, by your own words, you said she has enough to get by. It's never enough, you want me to just leave her suffering. I gave him the money, not because I thought it was right, but because I didn't want to be the villain in my own marriage. A month later, another $2,000. It started to feel less like helping and more like funding a lifestyle when I wasn't even a part of. Darren started changing too, quiet one day, snappy the next. He'd slam doors when I dared to ask where the money was going. Sex became rare, then non-existent. Our mornings turned to silence. Our evenings turned to isolation, me with my laptop, he with his phone, strangers at opposite ends of a shrinking room. And Alina, she became omnipresent. She was in my condo almost as much as I was. One evening, I came home from work and found her stirring a pot on my stove like it belonged to her. Just fixing a little stew for Darren, she said without turning around. He's so underfed, you never cook, all this frozen food, it's poison. She'd open cabinets, judge my cleaning supplies, comment on my makeup. One day, she even gave Darren a key to my condo. And he gave it to her. Without asking. Suddenly I'd come home and find my place rearranged, throw pillows gone, the couch angled differently, a new lamp I didn't buy. It's cozier, Alina insisted. I have taste. This is my condo, I said once, trying not to shake with rage. No, she replied flatly. It's our condo, Darren lives here, that makes it his, and what's his is family's. That's when I knew something was wrong. Really wrong. I wasn't married. I was slowly being absorbed. And if I didn't act soon, I was going to lose more than money. I was going to lose myself. I used to believe that love could carry anyone through anything. That if the foundation was built on respect, even storms couldn't break it. That no matter how loud the thunder or sudden the lightning, real love wouldn't collapse under pressure. But what no one tells you is that it's not always the storm that tears down the house. Sometimes it's the termites in the beams, quiet, hidden, chewing from the inside out. And for me, it wasn't just Alina's constant presence or her passive-aggressive commentary. It was the slow betrayal, one quiet assumption, one crossed line at a time. Until it wasn't quiet anymore. It happened on a Saturday afternoon. Darren wasn't home, said he had an urgent client meeting. I'd just come back from the gym, finally taking a moment to breathe, planning to spend it curled up with a book in silence. Instead, when I opened the door to my condo, there she was. Elena at the kitchen table, sipping tea, eating my cookies, sitting in her self-appointed throne like she paid the mortgage. She didn't even look surprised to see me, like she belonged there more than I did. "We need to talk," she said, setting down her cup. I didn't sit. "I've thought long and hard about how to say this gently," Elena began. "But I'll just be direct. You're a part of this family now, and in our family we take care of each other." That same ominous tone she used when judging my yogurt and calling it no nourishment. "I'm struggling, Sierra," she continued, standing now. "My income's barely covering anything. My health isn't what it used to be. And you, well, you're successful. You make well over $100,000 a year." I crossed my arms. "Elena, I'm happy to help, within reason, but—" "Good," she cut me off. "Then you shouldn't have a problem transferring $5,000 a month to me." Darren already agreed. He said you'd be reasonable about it. My stomach turned. "I'm sorry, what?" $5,000, she repeated. "Every month, it's fair. You live in a mortgage-free condo, make a high income, and I can barely afford heat in the winter." I just stood there blinking, trying not to laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was insane. That's nearly half of my take-home pay. I still have HOA, utilities, groceries, expenses. "Makeup," she scoffed with a raised brow. "Starbucks lattes, designer shoes, that's what you're spending your hard-earned money on instead of family." I was too stunned to respond. All I kept thinking was, $5,000, was this a negotiation, or was this extortion? Then she dropped the bomb. "Darren said you'd agree, he promised, said you were kind, that you knew your place as a wife. He loves you, you know, but love comes with sacrifice." A switch flipped in me. Not rage just yet, something colder. "I need to talk to Darren," I said flatly. "This conversation is over." Elena narrowed her eyes. "You'd better not disappoint him," she hissed. "You wouldn't want to destroy this marriage over something as selfish as money, would you?" She left in a theatrical flourish, slamming the front door like she was storming off stage. I sat at the table licking my wounds in silence, my hands shaking. $5,000 a month. The woman had lost her mind. When Darren got home, I didn't waste time. The second he walked in, I hit him with the question. "Did you tell your mother I would pay her $5,000 a month?" He hesitated, dropping his keys on the counter. "Well, I didn't promise. I said we'd talk about it, that you'd probably consider it." "Darren, are you hearing yourself?" "She needs the help, babe," he muttered. "She's alone, she's getting older, look, you have it, and she barely scrapes by." I wanted to shake him. "You already give her half your salary. Now she wants almost half of mine too. Are we running a retirement program or a marriage?" She gave everything to raise me. She worked 3 jobs, she never got a vacation, and what, you begrudge her a small piece of comfort? That's not small, that's exploitation. We argued for the next hour. I tried compromise, offered $1,000 a month temporarily with reevaluation in 6 months. Darren didn't budge. "That's insulting," he mumbled. "This is your family now too, you know." That night, he left the condo and spent the night at his mother's. The line had been drawn. And I wasn't sure he was ever planning to come back to my side of it. Still, I kept up the $1,000 payments for the sake of peace, for the possibility that somehow maybe this would all calm down. It didn't. Elena accepted the money like it was crumbs. $1,000, she scoffed, every month. Well, I guess it's better than nothing. The atmosphere at home thickened like soup left to rot on the stove. We stopped sharing dinners, conversations, laughs. Darren turned quiet, cold, withdrawn. And then things got serious. One quiet evening, I came home late to find a manila envelope on the kitchen counter, my name scribbled in messy handwriting. Inside, legal paperwork. A power of attorney with my name signed at the bottom, granting Darren or his designee full rights to transfer property, my property, the condo. And my signature was on it. Except I had never signed it. It was forged. I felt my whole body go cold. Darren was in the living room, watching TV like it was just another Wednesday. "Darren," I called from the kitchen. I held up the document with shaking fingers. "What is this?" He didn't even flinch. "Mom said it might make things easier, to have it as a backup, so I got it drawn up." "You forged my signature." "It's not a big deal, I thought you wouldn't mind." No apology, no panic. That moment, that was the end of my marriage, right there, not with a scream, not with a breakup text, but with a man calmly admitting to forging my name like he was borrowing milk. With my heart in my throat, I booked an urgent meeting with a family law attorney. If they were going to make this a war, then I needed to start building my defenses. Her name was Alicia King, mid-50s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. She listened without interrupting as I spilled everything from the money grabs to the forged documents and Darren's changing behavior. When I finished, she set her pen down and looked me dead in the eye. "Sierra, this condo is premarital property. Legally, it is yours and yours alone. According to Georgia law, Darren has no entitlement to this property, not even a square inch." I exhaled, then froze. "But," Alicia added, "if he gets you to voluntarily sign anything, under pressure, manipulation, or threats, you can lose it, and proving coercion later is nearly impossible." That forgery. It wasn't random. It was a test run. To see what they could get away with. That night I set a voice recorder on the living room shelf. Darren asked what it was. "Notes for work," I lied. And from that moment forward I watched and waited, because something ugly was brewing underneath this calm. And I needed proof. It was supposed to be a birthday party. Darren was turning 35, and despite everything, the fights, the cold silences, the emotional landmines, I foolishly hoped this night could be a reset. He asked me just once to host something nice, a small gathering, friends, family. He used that soft voice, the one I hadn't heard in months. "Just this one time, babe, it would mean a lot." Against every warning in my gut, I said yes. I spent the entire Saturday preparing. I dropped $800 on groceries, wine, and catering. I cleaned the condo until it sparkled. I roasted chicken, made canapes, built a dessert table that could have been on Pinterest. Even after everything they'd done, after the demands, the forgery, the gaslighting, I still found myself hoping. Hoping that maybe, somewhere deep down, the man I married was still in there. That maybe, just maybe, if I showed up in love, he'd meet me halfway. But I forgot one important thing. Wolves don't turn into puppies when you feed them, they just learn you're easier to hunt. Guests arrived at 7 p.m. sharp. My parents flew in from Richmond, my father, Colonel Robert Sterling, retired but still cut from steel. My mother, gentle and observant, didn't miss a thing. Darren's aunts showed up in furs they probably got second-hand but wore like royalty, cousins whispering behind their wine glasses, and of course Eleanor, the puppet master, flanked by her loyal entourage, Tanya and Gabby. From the jump, the air in the room felt off. I was treated like I didn't exist, a background character, the woman who poured the wine but wasn't welcome to drink it. They laughed too loudly, dropped pointed comments that were anything but subtle. "Some daughters-in-law understand family," Gabby said, eyes on me. "They don't hoard their wealth, they share." Tanya chimed in. Yes, real wives hand over everything. They're happy to sign the house, or at least half. It's about unity, not entitlement. Alina played conductor with a champagne flute in one hand. Young people these days, selfish beyond belief. Sacrifice means nothing to them. I clenched my fists under the table. My father, across from me, sat calmly, his expression unreadable. My mother just lightly placed a reassuring hand on my knee. But the look in their eyes. They could feel it too. Something ugly was coming. Then Alina stood, raising her glass. A toast to my son, my pride, my life. For 35 years I gave everything for you, Darren. I cleaned strangers' floors so you could go to school. I cried myself to sleep so you could live well. And now I look forward to the love and protection you and your wife will give me in return. Everyone clapped. Everyone except me. Her words weren't a toast, they were an invoice. And I'd never signed that contract. After the toast, Alina slid over beside me, voice quiet but cutting. Let's settle this right now. It's time to sign the condo over to Darren or to me. It doesn't matter. Either way, it becomes part of our family. I've asked politely. I've waited a year. Let's do this tomorrow with a notary. Then everything will finally be fair. I turned to her slowly, deliberately. In my calmest voice, I said, No. I will not sign over my condo, not to Darren, not to you. And as of this moment, the $1,000 support payments are ending too. This stops now. Silence. Then Alina's face twisted into something inhuman. Darren, she shrieked, loud enough to halt the background music. Did you hear that? She's humiliating me in front of everyone and on your birthday. Gasps, forks clinking nervously on plates. Darren stood slowly, his eyes locked onto mine. You're really not going to do this, after everything we've been through. I stood too, tall, steady. No, Darren, I'm not funding your mother's delusions anymore. My money is mine, my condo is mine, and if you fight me on this. You greedy, selfish, he spat. Then it happened. Darren grabbed the heavy ceramic serving plate from the table, the one that moments earlier held roasted lamb and rosemary potatoes, and smashed it against my head. Just like that. No hesitation, no blur of motion, just cold, deliberate violence. The sound was sickening, a crack not like glass but like bone under flesh. I hit the floor. Warm, sticky blood all over my face, pooling fast beneath me. Screams filled the room, chairs scraped backwards, people stood but no one moved to help. Because no one was surprised. Not really. They all knew what this was. Over me, Darren stood panting, his face red and twisted with hate. How dare you speak to my mother that way, you ungrateful tramp? And then I heard it. Clapping. Alina. She was clapping, actually clapping. Yes, Darren, that's how you do it. That's exactly how you fix a mouthy, ungrateful wife. Should have done it months ago, Zena said from the side, sipping her wine. Maybe now she'll behave. But while my body was shaking and my temple was throbbing and the taste of blood filled my mouth, something strange happened. I wasn't scared. I wasn't broken. I felt calm. Crystal cold steel. I rose slowly, blood trailing down my face, soaking into the satin of my dress. I wiped it away with the back of my hand and looked directly at Darren. You have no idea what I'm capable of. And the room froze. Not because I yelled. I didn't raise my voice. But because conviction doesn't need volume, it needs truth. And they saw it in my eyes. The woman they thought they had puppeteered. She wasn't bowing. She was rising. I turned and walked calmly into the bedroom, locked the door, opened my phone and called the police. Then I am mess. Then my lawyer. I took photos of the wounds, the broken pieces of the plate, the blood on the floor. I packed a duffel bag, passport, legal documents, bank cards, laptop charger, a change of clothes. Then I called my parents. They were waiting just outside the door. My father had seen everything and he hadn't moved yet. But his time was coming. 20 minutes later, a knock. When I opened the door, 2 uniformed officers stood at attention, back straight, not smiling. Behind them, Darren's fake party continued until they saw the blood. "Ma'am, you called." "Yes, I'm pressing charges for assault and battery." Darren jumped to his feet, panicking. Alina screamed that it was my fault, that I provoked him, that I fell. But I had photos, medical proof, dozens of witnesses. And no one could pretend anymore. EMTs arrived shortly after and confirmed. cm laceration above the eyebrow. Hematoma swelling over the right temple. Signs of blunt force trauma. The police officers nodded. "Sir, you're being placed under investigation. This may result in criminal charges." Darren turned pale, Alina cursed. The aunts disappeared, the cousins vanished. My father. He waited. When the room emptied out, Colonel Sterling stood before Darren, straight, silent, hands behind his back. "Outside now." And I let them go. I let my father take my abuser outside into the stairwell. 3 thuds. A cry from Darren. And then silence. When they returned, Darren was pale, bruised, staggering. Dad calm as ever. That night we packed Darren's belongings, all of them. And when the door slammed behind him, it didn't feel like the end. It felt like the beginning. The night Darren was removed from my condo, I didn't feel like a survivor. I felt hollow. Surrounded by cracked mascara, dried blood, silence, and a Rolex party gift someone left behind. They say when something traumatic ends, your brain plays tricks. It tells you it's not over, that it's coming back. But I knew it was done. And after that night, I stopped being afraid. Now it was my turn to go on the offense. The next morning, I went to the emergency room with my medical report in hand, bruises fully visible. The doctor documented everything. cm eyebrow laceration. 4x5 cm swelling to the right temple. Head trauma symptoms, ringing ears, nausea, vision haze. Then I walked into my lawyer's office with a steely calm. Alicia King greeted me with her usual grace. "You did everything right," she nodded. "Now it's time to finish the job." And she laid out my next moves like a general preparing for battle. Heavy file for divorce immediately. Heavy request a restraining order under Georgia's domestic violence statute. Heavy freeze any joint financial accounts before they drain it. Heavy gather every piece of documentation. There was no raging music, no movie soundtrack in the background. Just my breath and a sharp pen. At noon, I went straight to the bank. We had one joint debit account for shared expenses. It held just over $40,000. That money, mostly mine, paychecks I deposited, bonus payouts, overtime work that stretched over weekends. I transferred every penny into my personal account and closed the joint card. An hour later, Darren, blocked from my phone, found a way to reach me through a random number. "You stole from me. That money was supposed to be for us." I blocked the number too. Later that night, Alina showed up at my door like a banshee from southern hell, pounding her fists on the wood. "You thief, you monster, you ruined my son, you owe us everything." I didn't answer. I didn't scream back. I just pressed record. Then I called the police. She was issued an official warning for harassment and disturbing the peace. The next day, I filed for divorce. Grounds: domestic violence. Evidence: police report, photos, witness statements, and my medical report. The court responded promptly. A temporary protective order was granted. That same week, Darren was legally barred from coming within 300 feet of me. No more turning the corner and finding him loitering near my office parking lot. No more hallway stakeouts by my condo. No more surprises. And when he violated the order 2 more times, the police issued a fine, a 1,000 slap across the wallet. One more step and they promised jail. That kept him away. For now. The smear campaign wasn't over, though. Eleanor didn't go quietly. She called cousins, gossiped to church ladies, told the entire extended family that Sierra kicked her own husband into the gutter. That greedy girl robbed her husband of his condo. She ruined this family. At first, I cared. Then I didn't. Because when a story is true, you don't have to shout it louder than the liar. You just have to stand beside it and let people see who's trembling. And Eleanor. She was trembling. Darren filed a retaliatory lawsuit, claiming he was owed half of my condo in the divorce, that he lived there, contributed, had a right. I showed up to court with Alicia and receipts. Evidence the condo was bought before the marriage. Proof all HOA and mortgage payments were made from my account. Signed witness testimony from my parents and neighbors. No joint investments. No renovations paid from shared funds. Copies of everything labeled and sealed. Darren's lawyer tried to argue entitlement through occupancy. Alicia silenced him in 3 sentences. Your Honor, she said, standing rock solid in her heels. According to Georgia Code Title 19, Chapter 3, Section 1939, property acquired before marriage remains separate unless commingled. This condo wasn't, and unless the defense has renovation contracts or financial evidence, she paused for dramatic effect, there is no case. The judge reviewed the documents, then looked dead at Darren. Motion denied. The condo belongs solely to Sierra Sterling. Not a square inch is subject to division. Court adjourned. Darren didn't even stand. He just sat there, head down, twisting his wedding band in nervous circles. That was the turning point. The silence after. Eleanor stopped calling. Tanya blocked me. Relatives who once gasped at gossip quietly watched who walked out holding their dignity. And spoiler, it wasn't Darren. A month after the divorce was finalized, Darren was evicted from a shared apartment with his mother. The reason? Fighting, loud, constant screaming matches. According to a neighbor, I ran into downtown one day. Eleanor shouted at him that he was a leech, that he lost everything she sacrificed for, that he had a free ride handed to him and he threw it out chasing greed. Turns out the fairy tale crumbled on her end too. Darren started drinking again. He lost another job, this time for slapping a coworker's laptop and calling his boss a thief. He now lives in a boarding house. $600 a month, shared bath. From luxury windows overlooking Atlanta's skyline to a basement with flickering lights and no Wi-Fi. And me. I rebuilt. I healed. I returned to work stronger than I'd ever been. Months later, I was promoted to vice president of sales. My salary climbed to $15,000 a month. I started saving for a small business I dream of opening in Buckhead. I changed the walls in the condo, painted them a soothing cream. Bought new furniture, new art, new air. Everything he'd ever touched was gone. And my father. He still calls every Friday night. He doesn't say much, just, "You did it, you won." And the words always hit gently, like warm tea on a cold jaw. People ask me if I ever saw Darren again. I haven't, and if I ever do, I'll still look him in the eye. Because shame doesn't live with me anymore. Sometimes I sit on my balcony at dusk, legs curled under me, herbal tea in hand, and look at the glittering skyline in front of me. And I remember that girl, choking on rage, blood, betrayal, cradling her face in the bathroom mirror, steadying her breath. She didn't break. She didn't beg. She didn't back down. She fought and won. My condo is still mine. My name is the only one on the deed. My life is mine again.